Let's party.
Hello! It is Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's party loader time. So welcome to the show. This is everything great in the world of video games, as talked about by the four of us. So, my name's Luke Reptile. We have joining me tonight, as always, the full team. We've got, on that side, we've got Adrian Chia. Below me, we've got Christian Paulson Brown. And over to the bottom right, we have Matt, the Game Dad Diet. What's going on, gents? What's happened on this fine Wednesday? Another week?
I woke up and did some dishes, and
I ate currywurst.
Oh, what? I want currywurst.
It was good.
What's currywurst?
It's like German Kransky with like spicy curry sauce, and had it with mashed potato. It's good. It's homemade.
Nice.
Homemade currywurst. The sausage was homemade?
No, sausage wasn't homemade. Sauce,
That'd be impressive.
Still, that's some good shit.
That
what
is-
did you have for lunch, Matt?
What did I have for lunch? I had fish. I had fish for lunch.
What kind of fish?
Lunch.
Just crumbed fish. I was like crumbed barramundi. I basically was just doing a leftovers thing. So
What did you have, Luke?
I gotta say, like, I can't remember. I don't know if I actually ate lunch today. I probably didn't. But this actually brings something to our mind. Like, one of the things that I really miss during this whole sort of isolating period is like good sushi, like from takeaway shops.
yeah.
I super miss that at the moment. So, oh man, I'm actually getting to go out to my first restaurant meal in God knows how long. I think next week. So they've relaxed some of the restrictions, and like obviously every place has started booking out sold like crazy because they can only cater for up to 20 people at the moment. But my mother's got a birthday next week, and she was on the gun and managed to make the booking, and so I'm going out, and I'm like, it's going to be a normal evening for a change. It's going to be great.
Where are you going?
I don't know. I think Italian.
Italian.
Yeah. I don't know.
Italian is the worst food.
Man, I'm not going to be a chooser.
Wrong.
It's not wrong. Italian's my least favorite food.
Of everything that Adrian said, it would be Italian's the worst food is the thing that gets him kicked off the podcast.
Well, God damn it! I would have been eating real Italian food in Italy last month if all this hadn't gone down. So
That's true. Yeah.
But anyway, I've had to instead play a whole bunch of games. So, games, Adrian, what have you been playing this week? What's hot on the Adrian slate?
So I'm gonna bring Matt into my gaming in a moment, but I just want to talk briefly about what other game I played. It was on sale on Steam. It's Borderlands 3. So I bought it because it was on sale,
How much on sale?
like 50% off. It was
Okay.
like $50.
Still not enough, but go on.
Yeah, and I'd been looking at it for ages because I've played Borderlands 1, 2, and part of the pre-sequel. And I'm still in the phase where after getting a PC upgrade, I'd like to put it to the test and see how pretty things can look. So Borderlands was on my radar because it's, AAA first-person shooter. I wanted to see how it might look, and I have enjoyed the previous ones. And I will say that, in all honesty, I think Borderlands 3 is the absolute best Borderlands 2 I've ever played. Like, hands down.
Hang on. Have you played Tales from the Borderlands?
No.
Then no, it's not. But go on.
Pre-sequel?
But isn't the idea that that's not a Borderlands 2, whereas Adrian saying Borderlands 3 is a Borderlands 2?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe.
I thought the pre-sequel was Borderlands 2.
No, even
There's 3 Borderlands 2.
There's 3 Borderlands 2.
I would maintain the pre-sequel is better than Borderlands 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, look, I won't talk too much about it because it's not that interesting a topic, really. It is pretty much just more Borderlands 2. It could very well be an expansion of Borderlands 2.
Hey-yo.
Yeah.
But I'm right near the end of it tonight. I was doing a lot of side quests and then decided just to go straight for the ending. And it has all the same kind of annoying issues that the other Borderlands games have, where like as a loot game, like you pick up a legendary gun, but it's legendary for your current player level. So then you pick up a shitty blue gun and it's better than the legendary gun you literally just picked up. So it's one of the main core gameplay loops, which just seems flawed to me. And the only thing I really wanted to mention is that I thought it would be fine, but the writing in Borderlands 3 is truly obnoxious. Like the characters are unlikable. The humor is like the worst kind of like throw everything at the wall kind of humor and see what sticks. And it makes me think of a Michael Bay movie where there's no nuance or downtime to the kind of humor. And playing through the game, I can't help but feel that the game is made for like teenage boys, and that's it. Like, or morons. Like it's just that kind of game. Sure, I'm playing it, and I'm a moron for playing it. I just can't help but feel the people who really love Borderlands have got to be morons. Like,
there are some games you can just turn your brain off, though, and this is
yeah. Like you would have to not just turn your brain off to like enjoy the writing of Borderlands 3. I think you would have to, you have to be a real mouth breather, I think, to really get to do it. So, I don't apologize for that. I think if you enjoy the characters and the writing of Borderlands 3, you're an idiot. That's all I want to say about it.
Cool.
That's fair. The movie that's supposedly being made at the moment, who was the director attached to that? It was Eli Roth?
I don't know.
Oh, it was a really weird director.
Yeah, I think it was Eli Roth. I'm pretty sure it was. And there was a thing going out last week that apparently Cate Blanchett was in talks for one of the roles. I'm just like, no, Kate, don't fucking do it, please. We think too highly of you.
That's it. It's the writing's crap, and I haven't really enjoyed any moment I've played. The only time I have enjoyed it is there is this strange. Very quickly, there is one thing I wanted to talk about actually, and that's that they do have this thing running at the moment, which is called Revenge of the Cartels, and it's like an event that runs for roughly a couple of weeks. And what happens is, as you play through the main game, there are these like mini bosses that will teleport into your campaign, and you just fight them and kill them, and you can get loot. And what you can also do is that through a series of like collecting little gizmos, you can do. It's basically like a strike from Destiny. It's like a small instanced like scenario / mission. It's a mission where you go into the mission, you fight a bunch of stuff. The mission is themed. There's a bunch of achievements based around the mission, and this particular mission offers like really awesome guns as loot. The problem is, I'm not kidding. I did one of those. I did this Revenge of the Cartels event mission. The gun I got from it, I could literally play the entire campaign with that gun and never need to change it. Yeah. It was so overpowered. There was literally no need to use any other weapon that exists in the game. So there's some serious balance issues there and like I even had to post on Reddit to work out if I was doing something wrong, and people were like, no, it's just really poorly balanced, and that's how that works. So that's a bit odd, and it was a bit unusual. But I did have the most fun so far playing that event with my brother-in-law, Caden. So he and I teamed up, and we had quite a lot of fun doing that. So I can see there's a bit of appeal if you get together with friends.
That wedding, that event's not linked to the whole hentai wedding thing that they did as DLC recently, is it?
No, it's not. I don't think it's hentai wedding. I think there's just two characters in the game that got married.
The thing is themed around tentacles though as well, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, maybe there is tentacles involved. Yeah. Anyway, but I already can tell, like, just from those two combinations of themes, it would be terrible, like, from what I've already experienced. Anyway, what I have played, which has been a lot better, and I know Matt's been playing it as well, so we can talk about it together, is X-Com Chimera Squad.
Yep.
X-Com Chimera Squad, which is the third sort of modern-ish XCOM game that's been released. You could consider it an XCOM 2.5. So XCOM 1 came out a number of years ago, XCOM 2, XCOM Chimera Squad. So traditionally, the XCOM games have been sort of like a long-term campaign that you play that has a lot of micromanagement, resource management sort of overlay, and then the sort of action part of the game are turn-based isometric sort of strategy games that you play over a battlefield where you engage with aliens and whatnot. So you spend your downtime in the game researching weapons and armor and upgrades for your squads, and then you play like a campaign set over a number of months against the alien forces. So, and in the past, in XCOM 1 and 2, the stakes have been quite high narratively. So normally you're trying to prevent an alien invasion, or the plot of the second one, in a nutshell, is the aliens. It's an alternate timeline where the aliens have invaded and taken over Earth, and you're like a guerrilla faction fighting against your sort of alien government overlords in sort of a dystopian future. Yep. So the setting for Chimera Squad is interesting because it's set after the events of XCOM 2, where the alien sort of government and authoritarian power have been defeated, and the aliens that were invaders that have been left behind on the planet have been assimilated into the population. So now the Earth's population is a mix of alien and human, or genetically modified humans with alien DNA. So there's a bit of a melting pot there. And there's this new city that's been erected called City 31. Mm-hmm. And this city is like a metropolis of human and alien cultures mixing together. But of course, there is civil unrest in a place like this. And so a crack team of specialists has been sent in to deal with those situations that 31 PD cannot handle. So, and that's basically the premise for the game. And there's a bit of a detective story going on there.
Is PD police department? Is that what the...
Yeah. But you guys are like the remnants of XCOM that have come to sort of take over.
Yeah.
Can't do their job.
It seems like XCOM is basically now the world government, and Chimera Squad is like this mixed alien-human squad that they send out to kind of help stop uprising and that sort of thing. Like they're trying to maintain control of the planet,
like the Marines / SWAT sort of thing.
They're a SWAT team. They're absolutely a SWAT team. Yeah. But City 31 is basically like this city where it's meant to be showing that, hey, look, we can live and work together. So if City 31 fails, then basically it shows this whole project of making this melting pot of aliens and humans.
Like the city in Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
The Pokemon and the people have to work together.
Yeah.
Only it has sexy snake people.
Let's get the sexy snake people out of the way. So there is
No, we don't want them out of the way. We want them in the way. Plow on through, I say.
In XCOM 2, they introduced an alien enemy called Vipers, and they're like snake from the waist down. So they have like snake tail, then sort of female human torso, like scaled, and then like a cobra head. They have breasts, which is very unusual because they're reptiles. So I don't know what that's about. I assume in the art direction just went, you know what? Let's make them sexy.
They wanted to make them erectiles.
Yes.
I'm actually playing XCOM 2 at the moment.
Really?
Yeah. So, and when you actually do an autopsy on one of them, the scientist actually comments on the fact that they have very, very clearly had human DNA spliced into them. Because that's why they have boobs. That's why they have boobs, because they have human DNA spliced in.
So they got human DNA in them. I didn't know that. I thought they were like a pure alien.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you do get one of these sexy snake ladies on your squad, and she's like full, like tsundere style, like passive aggressive, but actually kind of sweet sort of personality.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads nicely into what Matt and I talked about when we first heard about the game is, will this version of XCOM be more character focused as opposed to the previous games where your squad were all nameless nobodies and you could name them and customize them and change the way they look and all their colors. In this, all your squad mates are sort of set characters with defined roles and skills and abilities. That is the case. And I think, unfortunately, the game doesn't quite go to the narrative lengths I would have liked with each of the individual characters. Mm-hmm. It does a little bit, but it's mainly through like incidental chatter in a battle or in between missions. There's a little bit of like radio chatter. So when you're back at base and you're doing your upkeep kind of activities, like researching here, doing an investigation here, blah blah blah. Now and then the characters will sort of their portraits will pop up and they'll have little conversations with each other, which adds to the sort of flavor of it. So
how many main characters are there?
Yeah, so I can't remember off the top of my head how many squad mates.
11.
11. So there's 11.
Right.
There's 11 characters, but you can only have 8 in your squad.
Yeah.
And you start off with 4?
You
Five,
start
six.
off. You start off with 4, and then you collect another 4 over the time you play.
Yeah, there you go. And what it does is to encourage you to replay the game. The game does not give you the option to pick every squad member through a playthrough. At certain points in the story, you will recruit a new squad member, and it lets you pick one of 3. And of course, you want to pick the aliens because they're cooler than the humans.
Yeah.
But that leads into gameplay balance issues, which we might talk about in a little bit. But overall, I think it's good. It has one massive failing in that the end of the game is terrible. The final battle is like a total absolute fizzle. Like there's no.
Yeah.
One of the earlier missions is way harder than the end of the game.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you're saying it's a fizzer from a gameplay perspective or a narrative perspective?
Only the end, only the very end of the game. Like right. the minute-to-minute gameplay is fine.
Yeah.
It's very XCOM. It's a little different in that I mentioned in the past that in the other XCOM games you activate your entire squad, then the enemy moves, and you take like squad turns. In this XCOM, it's individual turns because, look, I'll break down a fight very briefly. All it is you have a bunch of soldiers. They break into a room. You fight the 4 or 5 bad guys in the room, and then depending on the scale of the mission, you might then break down doors going into a second room. And then on a particularly long mission, there'll be 3 rooms, and that'll be it. So it's in some cases the missions can be over in like 2 turns. So it's very fast compared to the other XCOM.
Yeah, it's all about the breaching. So like when you first get there, you basically choose how you want your soldiers to enter, and that's kind of the big key difference from XCOM 2 is the fact that like you are choosing to breach and enter into a location. The locations are very small. Like they're much more condensed spaces. They're not usually big open areas so much. Those are a lot more rare. And you can basically kill everything in the course of a breach if you're good. Like
so, it's like a turn-based Rainbow Six almost.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like I quite like it because like if you get to particularly hard missions or longer missions, then certain breach points have randomly generated like outcomes. So like you might go through a certain breach point, all of your characters might have better aim during that point, or you might go through a breach point and all of the enemies in there are alert, which means that they will return fire, and you have a much higher chance of all your soldiers taking damage before you even get to turn number 1.
Yeah, there's some good tactics there with when you first burst into a room, you have to prioritize your targets, and if you don't take out the ones that are already aggressive, they will fight back. So there is some cool. It adds another layer of tactics onto it, which is good. Yeah. We probably don't want to go too long about it, but the one thing I do want to say is that the 2 main issues with the game are, one, it's still buggy as hell.
Oh god, yeah.
A lot of the XCOM games have been. This one is particularly bad, and 2, it has the difficulty curve drops off significantly after about a third of the way through. And it's the kind of game that gives you a shit ton of options, but because it's a game based on damage and numbers, there is always an optimal way to do things.
Yeah.
And so there are tons of gadgets that do things to the enemy, but none of them are ever better than just killing the enemy. So there's no point in using those gadgets ever, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe on high difficulties, I can see them, like, sure, you can poison the bad guy. You can set fire to the bad guy. You can teleport the bad guy and swap places, or you can just shotgun that guy and kill him, and then he's removed from the game. So there's never a better option than just shooting, and that I think is one of the actual failures of the game.
Yeah, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was great. There was some really, really funny character moments in the dialogue interactions between different characters that I thoroughly enjoyed. Like my biggest concern was like it's going to detract from that whole customizing my soldiers thing, but like the characters I think really made up for it. I agree that I wish they did more with that though. But there's characters in there. I had actually said to Adrian during my first playthrough, because I've technically played it through twice. The first time I got like 2/3 of the way through, and then stopped and restarted. And there was a reason for that, and it was because I realized that I couldn't recruit every single soldier. And it turned out that because of that fact, I had missed out on recruiting Torque. who is the snake lady, and she's also incredibly powerful. Not just because she's a cool character and she's also a snake with tits, but because of the fact that she is just so immensely powerful. She has the ability that the Vipers had in XCOM 2, where you can grab somebody, yank them over, and then just tie them up, and just that's it. They're now out of the fight. You just hold on to them. That's such an immensely powerful ability. So the first time I was playing it, I was really struggling. Like there's certain fights in there that just get immensely hard. And so I restarted. When you start without the tutorial, you get to choose all of your characters instead. So I chose a squad of just full aliens. Went back into it, and then did the first 2 battles that I'd done before, the first 2 really big, tough ones. And I was like, that was a piece of shit. Like, that was easy. And then it turns out the reason that I was struggling so much was because the characters that I had chosen were fucking garbage. Like, they were just so bad.
That's worth pointing out, in that a game with like a roster of characters, you should be incentivized to pick any character that you like. Unfortunately, again, because it's a game of numbers, some of those characters are just flat out bad. Yeah. And there are best characters. And a quick Google search of any XCOM guide will quickly tell you your optimal team should exist of this. Yeah. And if you don't do that, like, it's hard. It's like the Borderlands thing that I was just talking about, where, like, sure, you can choose not to use the Uber gun that you just got because it's unbalanced, but then, like, it's kind of silly not to. Yeah. Like, it's hard.
I think it's okay. It's okay, Matt. Like, I wouldn't beat yourself up about it. Like, restarting just due to not performing because you had Reptile Dysfunction, I think is fine.
Reptile Dysfunction.
As soon as you started talking, I knew it wasn't a serious thing.
I could tell. Yeah, it was totally going somewhere.
Anyway, the point is, it's good. It's still worth playing.
Yep.
And it's a nice little tie over before, I assume, XCOM 3. Yes. Unfortunately, it is not a visual upgrade in any way. No. It is not like, it does not improve upon XCOM 2 visually in any way at all. It's almost exactly the same.
It's got a lot more color. I think it has a lot more color than XCOM 2.
I noticed that immediately looking at the footage. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a much brighter world, right? Like, it's not like everything's horrible. Like, it's actually, like, the world's actually in a pretty good place. You're just trying to maintain that goodness.
It is a little snappier with its interface. Like, it does feel a bit quicker and a bit less sluggish. But model-wise, I remember I had one guy that for a whole mission just T-posed through the whole mission.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me that.
And he just went like this. And when he shot enemies, his arm went into his torso, and the gun stuck out of his chest. So he was like this the whole time. And when he shot enemies, the shot came from his chest. So he had like a belly cannon, and so he would just like clear the room. And he had an ability where it was his ultimate ability, where he would take one shot against every enemy in the room. So he just went pew pew.
I love T-poses, man. Yeah. T-poses are the best.
It was great.
When pregnant women get ultrasounds, the baby should be T-posing.
Fantastic. So,
but yeah, I would basically entirely agree with Adrian. I think that it's a very much a worthwhile entry into XCOM. I think that it's thoroughly enjoyable, but if you can't deal with the bugs, give it a couple of months before you pick it up. If you can deal with the bugs, then absolutely go and buy it, because the characters are a lot of fun. And like I said before, they'd actually inspired me to go back and play XCOM 2 again. And I'm only customizing my characters' appearances. I'm not actually changing their names or anything like that. And I'm having a lot of fun with it in that respect. So yeah, it's very different from how I usually play it.
The last thing I want to say is that it does make me excited for XCOM 3 if they continue with this story. If it's this plot line of like an integrated alien society, I really like that. Yeah, because I'm like with guns, like with Ratchet and Clank and games like that. I like to have crazy, like, colorful things to play around with in my games, and the idea of having a bunch of aliens in my squad is great. And so I hope they do that for XCOM 3. So.
It definitely it feels like a bridging narrative between XCOM 2 and XCOM 3. That's what Chimera Squad feels like.
There's a lot they can do with that. That I agree. I think that's a really cool idea. Yeah. And that sort of leads into the question I wanted to ask both of you, sort of based on this being the lead into XCOM 3. Like, maybe not narratively, because you've covered that pretty well, but mechanically, what would you like to see actually brought into XCOM 3 as opposed to left on the cutting room floor.
I actually really like the turn order change. I think that's really cool. I think that it makes things a lot more strategic. Like playing through XCOM 2 at the moment, like just having every character available at any time. There's clearly good moments to use one character or another. XCOM 2 is a harder game because the hit chance is just lower than XCOM Chimera Squad.
Yeah.
So I would hope that they make it so that your hit chance is higher, like in Chimera Squad, but then you've got to strategize around like, well, this character is the only one that can do anything right now, and these two other characters are about to take turns after them. How can I protect the rest of my team by taking those out before they get their turn? So I like that strategizing.
I agree. I think by making it a smaller game, they were able to make it more tactical. And I like the element of, because it's like a turn order of, and they show you the turn order down the side, so you can see who's coming up next. And that lets you knock people out of the turn order by killing them and like strategizing that way, which is very satisfying when you manage to do that.
That sounds like a CRPG, like Divinity or Baldur's Gate or something.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. And the only other thing I think that they should enhance or change tactically is maybe not to put as much gear in the game. Like I find like there's so many items and gizmos and gadgets that it's a bit overwhelming. And like I said, none of them are better than just shooting shit in the face. So I think that needs to be balanced a bit better if there's an XCOM 3 and you're going to research something like, that's
the breach. The breach stuff is a really good example. Like there's like 2 different researches you can do for a whole bunch of different breach equipment, and it's not worth doing because whenever you're breaching, your characters have really good abilities that they can use during the combat that are better. And again, shooting stuff is always better than throwing a flashbang or anything like that. Like the effect is just so minimal. So.
Smaller scale overall, I think would be good.
I felt like maybe like reloading or limiting ammo could be partly an answer to that sort of thing.
That's already part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
But to be fair, there's not much wrong with the XCOM formula anyway. Like,
God, no.
It's pretty good. So I don't think they need to change much.
This feels like an experiment, and I think that it's an experiment that worked really well.
Yeah, I think it paid off. I think it's good.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of things paying off, Christian, I'm super curious to hear about whether your gaming this last week or two has paid off, given that you've got something to draw a direct comparison to. So give it to us.
I am about 20 hours into Final Fantasy VII Remake. And this was, as I talked about last couple of weeks, hot off the heels of playing the original for the first time. So it has been a really interesting experience having that direct, fresh comparison. And I think I'm so glad that I played the original because I'm enjoying so much all the references and little flashes you see of stuff in the future. And like, I'm really glad that I have all that context now. Just the game in general, though, I think is really impressive. I really like the approach they've taken to actually remaking it. I wanted to compare it to Resident Evil 2 and the differences because those original games came out 1 year apart, and they're both games that used like pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D characters originally. But what Resident Evil 2 did with the recent remake is it's like they went, okay, let's remake the game as close as we can, but with modern sensibilities. So the environments are almost one-to-one identical to the original, just they've been 3D modeled for the first time because before that they only had basically pictures of the environments because it was pre-rendered. So they had to create everything from scratch. But it feels very similar to the original, and it follows a very similar story with some differences. Whereas Final Fantasy VII Remake it's like they had a notepad with the key points of Final Fantasy VII and then erased their memory of the original. So gameplay-wise, there's you've got there's materia, but it works similarly. But other than that, gameplay-wise, it's completely new. It's much more like I think Yakuza and Nier Automata are the closest comparisons I draw. Mm-hmm. So it's 3D action, small-ish open worlds. You get a little town hub, and then there's a few side missions in that hub, but then that's it, and then you go on to the next kind of hub. And it's it still has the ATB system where the characters have a bar that fills up as you attack. But that's just like, it's real-time action, but then it's just every ATB bar you can cast a spell or do a special ability. They do integrate like the essence of the old combat system, but in a completely new way. It's just, it's very different to how Resident Evil 2 was done, is what I'm saying. Story-wise, they have all of like the key moments are still the same, but they've obviously had to expand it greatly. So they've like pumped it and padded it out with just tons more to do, and all the environments are just so much bigger and more detailed. Like there were areas like the Sector 4 slums, which is like where Aerith lives, and in the original there's basically Aerith's house and then like a corridor and like an abandoned playground. That's basically it. But now it's like a full town with vendors and side missions and like tons of NPCs, and it's completely built out.
Because I was going to ask you, like, given the difference in time to play through the remake versus like the equivalent in the original game, like this is probably, I mean, I'm going to get the hours wrong here, but my understanding is that the remake is about 30 hours or so versus like that equivalent in Final Fantasy VII is almost like 6 hours worth ish.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that the remake has the potential to go a lot longer than 30 hours, because I'm just shy of 20. I'm like 19 in, and I'm in chapter 9, which is the Wall Market area. If anyone remembers that from the original, where you have to like rescue Tifa from Don Corneo, and I know there's still a lot more to go, and I know like chapter wise, I know that it goes at least up to chapter 18 into the 20s. And I'm on chapter 9, and I'm 20 hours in. So I think that if you do all of this, I'm doing all of the side missions, making like trying to get all the materia, doing everything I can, and I think that it can go longer than 30. So it's definitely like, it's almost unfair to make that direct comparison to the original because of how it's a completely different game. It's like comparing, like, I don't know, like almost a completely different genre. It's like comparing, how long is Street Fighter 2 compared to how long is Skyrim? It's like they're different games. It's like, it's not a fair comparison.
So I guess the question I was kind of driving to was that it seems like it's not just padding. Like it seems like they've actually just built out everything. Like it's not just one thing. It's not just padding. It's like they've made a whole game out of they hit the dot points of the story, and it's the same setting, but then it's a brand new game from there. So like there's just so much new shit in it that it's
Christian, is it right? Fresh. Is it correct that the remake doesn't cover the entire story of Final Fantasy VII?
Well, my understanding is that it will cover roughly up to when the characters leave Midgar.
Right. Okay.
But I don't want to. If anybody knows more than me, I definitely don't want them to say anything. Yeah, sure. But I know that the ending goes a bit wonky. I've heard that it changes things a bit maybe towards the end, and so in my mind, I'm wondering, are they going to end it in a way that kind of excuses them from having to remake the rest of the game? Are they going to go, okay, we've made this, now we're going to do this crazy ending, and then that kind of because of the way the direction we're taking it, we're going to wiggle ourselves out of having to do the whole game. But that's complete speculation, and I don't want anybody to tell me if that's wrong.
I doubt it, because they like money. So
yeah, that's true.
They have the assets and everything now, so.
Well, they have that's true. Yeah. A couple of like small things I wanted to hit on. The voice acting is for the most part phenomenal. I'm playing it in English, with the exception of Aerith's voice actor. I don't like Aerith's voice actor. Her voice sounds too like affected and like kind of fake, and it's like she's trying a bit too hard to be this like sweet girl next door thing.
Well, if things take their course, that may not be a problem for like, forever.
God damn it.
True.
Why,
yeah.
Why, Luke?
Why? Yeah, because they remove her vocal cords. Haven't you played the original? Yeah.
Oh God. Well, that's way more gruesome. Something.
Yeah.
I really like the way that the side missions are structured, where when you enter a new hub, it straight away you can press a button and it shows you all of the side quests in the area, and they all have like a track of dots of how far along each of them you are, so you can easily know when you've like completed an area. Like it's not a game where you have to wonder like, oh, have I done everything? Am I missing something? Every side quest is like dot pointed, and you can like tick them all off, and then you're done. So as someone who likes a completionist and who hates missing things after you progress a certain distance, because it is a game where once you go to the next area, you can't go back. So I'm really glad that they've made it very clear of how to finish everything before you move on. Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really enjoying it. I feel like a bit of a poser with how much I love it, because I have only just finished Final Fantasy VII for the first time, but already I'm like, seeing these characters talking and like seeing these moments in these like brand new flashy cutscenes, and like it's like I have instant nostalgia for the original, even though I just played it, and that makes me feel like a bit of a poser. But
I love how you say makes you feel like a bit of a poser as you've got your massive gloves on.
Whatever.
No, I get it. I think it's
the point. I think the point of video games is that they exist in a vacuum, in your vacuum. So just consume them as you see fit, much like an Animal Crossing island, and don't let anyone else tell you how you consume that.
That's fair.
In a way, though, I'd say
unless you're Luke and you're doing it wrong, then stop.
I think you actually probably started experiencing Final Fantasy VII in terms of your connection to it like a long time ago, though. Like, despite the fact that you've only played it recently. So
I mean, I've known who the main cast were for a long time, and I watched my housemate play it before, so I've seen bits and pieces here and there in the past. I've heard some of the music in the past, and there's also like there's having played other Final Fantasy games, there's stuff that you can just connect already. So like I already know Chocobos, I know Moogles, I know like a lot of the monsters and the systems. So it was kind of just like adding another piece to that genre that I have played before.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, I wanted to mention the music, actually. The music is fantastic. Obviously, the original had extremely memorable tracks and some very emotional tracks like Aerith's theme and Tifa's theme. And the way they've remixed them and updated them is top notch. Like, it's definitely one of those games that I'm going to be listening to the soundtrack in the background while I study and stuff for a long time. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. Well, what else?
I just want to mention very briefly, not that it matters at all to anyone, but I kind of hate Final Fantasy VII right now.
I know you've said in the past you think it's overrated. And
I can't articulate it any more than the fact that, like, Christian will get this. It's the same reason I don't like Nightmare Before Christmas anymore. Where it's something that I used to like, and then because everyone loves it, that makes me want to distance myself from it. And it's probably completely selfish.
It's a bit like the Game of Thrones effect when...
Yeah, it's exactly it. And it was Game of Thrones, because I was late to Game of Thrones as well, because of how many people told me to love it. And I just kind of feel that, like, I don't... Like, when I think about the characters in Final Fantasy VII, it kind of makes me a bit nauseous. Like, I just don't want anything to do with them. There's something weird about that. I'm not saying this to make any point. I just want to know what's wrong with me. Like, I don't get... It's strange.
As far as that topic goes, we only have so many hours in this podcast.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess the key point is that because I don't like it, it's bad. That's the main thing.
I would never play it then.
Yeah. I was going to go out and get it tomorrow on Christian's recommendation, but that's a truth I can listen to, Adrian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll finish by saying that I definitely think it's the best Final Fantasy game since 10. Of like flat out.
That makes me want to experience more. If it's a really good game. Yeah,
I think it's amazing.
I just hope. I was just really hoping that it's not all its merits are just based on nostalgia, and it's not just.
Yeah. But that's like saying that Resident Evil Remake is the best Resident Evil game now, which it is pretty much. Like yeah.
I don't think all its merits are based on nostalgia. I think that I really enjoy the combat system. It's the way it mixes real time. It's like you're dodging, you're attacking, and then suddenly you pause, you choose an ability, because you still have a party, but what you're usually doing is you're controlling one character, the other party members are doing their own thing, and then once you notice their ATB bar has filled up, you can just like press R2, and it pauses, flicks over to them, and then you choose which ability for them to use. So there's a nice little like, doing your thing, okay, Barrett, do focus shot, doing your thing, okay, Aerith, heal. And I like the sort of ebb and flow of the combat.
Yeah, okay.
Nice. Well, I don't have anything significant to contribute tonight because I've been mostly playing the same sort of stuff. However, I did jump back into Destiny 2 this week after some news that we got during the week about what future seasons are going to look like in terms of them shelving a lot of their approach to cosmetics at the moment, which is super interesting.
Really cool news.
Yeah. So there's some stuff coming up for that game which got me kind of intrigued and interested, and so I've jumped in and spent a bit of time this week sort of seeing if I can play some catch-up this season because I've come in 2/3 the way through the season, and I'm still going to try and get the seal for the season in the remaining weeks if I can. So I think I can. I think I've got just enough time without killing myself. So
not again.
No, it won't be as bad as when I did that last year. This is much more reasonable pace while playing other games too. So yeah, Matt and I streamed some Animal Crossing last week, which was a super fun chill stream. That was good. And
it was really relaxed.
Yeah, and explored each other's islands. So if anyone wants to check that out, you can on the archive for our channel. And I'll look at getting some of that up on our YouTube soon as well. I might snip it a bit though because it was a good 2 hours worth of us rambling about design choices and
just faffing about.
It was good fun though. But yeah. It's a game that still you can super easily lose a lot of time with not getting a whole lot done. So
It did do. I thought the stream was really good just for the fact that it kind of tied well into that podcast episode where we were talking about our different building styles.
Yeah.
Because Luke's is pretty much the polar opposite to how I was building out my island. So it was actually kind of neat to compare in that respect. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we did mention, and Adrian and Christian, I want to sort of invite you two to potentially be part of this as well, is Matt and I actually want to go back in like a month's time, assuming that we're all still playing a bit, and maybe do like a 4-island tour just to sort of see where we're all at that time. So,
on stream for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe like a more streamlined one where we sort of limit it to like a 20 to 30 minute walkthrough as opposed to what we did, which was like an hour on each island.
I'll have to tidy up the unmarked graves on my island.
Yeah.
Oh no, don't! You haven't seen Luke's basement.
It's pretty good.
DIY
my home movie studio, Matt. I'll have you know.
The man cave.
It should be mentioned that Luke visited my island once before, and Christian and Luke came to my island once before at the same time. But only Christian noticed the barbed wire and the ovens that I had placed around my villagers' homes,
and the big mass graves.
Yeah.
How the fuck did I miss that?
It took a bit of imagination.
Luke, your home theater kind of like indicates the sort of thing that you were used to, in your space.
So what you're saying is that I didn't even see it because I'm totally desensitized to that kind of content?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that holds water. Cool. Yeah, that's probably true. All right, anyway, that's all gaming for this week. Let's jump into some news. So I think we can probably talk about some Tony Hawk first. So
sure.
Let's go. What's going on?
So, here I am doing everything I can. Holding on to
what you are? Yeah.
Pretend that I'm Superman. And then suddenly they announced Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remastered. Thank you for getting that, Adrian. So yeah, it looks like that Activision might finally be releasing a good Tony Hawk for the first time since Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4.
And it's just Tony Hawk 1.
And it's just Tony Hawk 1 and 2 again.
1 and 2, yep.
Yeah. So it's coming out September 4th, multi-platform, so it's Epic Game Store, PS4, Xbox. Is it coming on Switch too? I didn't see that. Actually.
Don't know. It's definitely PC though, which is the thing that stood out to me. Yeah.
My YouTube channel is populated with random Tony Hawk videos. I must have watched a couple of clips about Tony Hawk, and now it gets recommended to me all the time. I watch quite a lot of videos about Tony Hawk for some reason. Did you know that he got rich because of those two games? He was not.
That's not surprising.
He was not a wealthy person. He was just a struggling professional athlete.
It happens with names on games like that. I would wager that nobody knew who the fuck Chuck Yeager was before those flight sims came out, and then nobody still knows. So, apart from old farts like me,
the first man to break the sound barrier.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, the important stuff is it looks to be fairly untouched from the original, so they're not messing with it too much. They're just improving the park builder. And they're adding new multiplayer modes, and they have said that most of the music will be back, but that they can't guarantee all of it because of obviously licensed music is some of the hardest stuff to continue because it's usually very specific licenses they get those songs for. But if they don't have Superman by Goldfinger, then we riot. So
I saw it on the list. It was definitely on the list. So
okay, cool. Yeah. That should be nice. I think that I'll probably pick it up because I enjoyed. Yeah, and honestly, they're the only two I played. I only played 1 and 2, and then never touched any others. So I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I think I remember trying. I think I played 3 for a bit and then dabbled in the others. But yeah, 1 and 2 were like where it's at.
Yeah.
I have
to see what the feedback's like on it.
I have no connection to these games. Like I've never played.
Really?
I think the only game, the only skating game. Well, probably.
Yeah.
I think the only skating game I ever played was Skate or Die, which was an old NES game. I think. I want to say
Skate or Die. I don't remember.
Yeah, really, really old.
It had a really good theme. Had a good theme.
But because I don't tend to play sport games a lot, like I'd never touched any of those, so I don't have any connection to it. But I keep on hearing about how freaking awesome the soundtrack is. So, yeah, I get it.
It's just pop punk. Yeah, it's just very 90s.
Yeah.
Super 90s. Yeah.
Well, music tends to be, a nostalgic trigger for a lot of people.
It's really popular as well because it's such a weird game in a way. Like, I can't remember any kind of skateboarding game existing before that. And then the mechanics of it were just so fun. Like, there was a weird open world-ish kind of, vibe to it. And showing off to your friends that you could do like these different tricks. And,
I think it's the Tony Hawk games that had narrative that I fucking loved the most. Like,
really?
They were the ones that was just stupid and funny. Like Tony Hawk's Underground. I remember the story from that being ridiculous. There's one where you have literally like a nemesis who steals this video of you doing a really cool trick, and then you spend the entire game trying to figure out a way to fuck him over. Like, that shit's awesome. I think it's great.
It sounds a bit like what they did with Need for Speed Underground, like how they've got that narrative.
Only done well.
Yeah.
Only done well.
That's the thing. Like, most of those games to me, I'm just like, I don't care. It's a driving game. That's what you don't play it for the story. But I don't know. Yeah. Or if you're me, you don't play it. Period. So yeah.
Tony Hawk now is famous for shitty entries. Like ever since, I think after Underground, when they made Tony Hawk Ride, where you had this actual skateboard peripheral, that was awful. And then the latest one they did, which I think they just called Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, they went for the whole we're just going to call it the same name as the original because it's going to be so good. And that game was just completely broken, like
garbage,
buggy and glitchy garbage. So fingers
never
crossed.
should have been released. Yeah.
It's almost like the hardware outpaced the limitations of what the game is. Like, you can't make, it's a simple concept.
Yeah.
You can't do too much to it before it falls apart.
I just don't think they spent enough on it, is what it comes down to. So, fucking cheapskates. Anyway, so, moving on, we've got a whole bunch of Xbox stuff this week. So, Xbox actually had a huge announcement stream a la sort of E3 style, where not as big as what they would normally do as a presentation at E3, but this is sort of getting up there in terms of they're probably going to do the same sort of content but split over multiple months. So they have like a stream each month, sort of in the lead up to the release of the next gen consoles. So this one was very much sort of focused around Series X sort of games that are going to be coming out when the new console does. It was loudly promoted by Microsoft as a gameplay reveal, which is fucking bullshit because there was pretty much no gameplay in any of the trailers.
Hashtag gameplay gate.
Yeah, so that's been.
It was all in-engine footage. Was the thing? Wasn't gameplay.
Anyway, so probably most noticeable with the Assassin's Creed Valhalla trailer, I'm going to say, because really there wasn't any gameplay there, unless it was stealthily blended in to the extent that none of us could actually tell it was different or not. But I mean, that being said, Assassin's Creed Valhalla looks fucking cool. I'm very interested in that game.
Go on, Adrian. What are your thoughts on Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
Assassin's Creed is already the worst game franchise in existence. Now paired it with
disagree. I think that, and this is coming from me who's played far less.
Don't try and reason Luke. Don't even he's saying it's the worst franchise.
I'm not defending Assassin's Creed. I'm saying that I can immediately think of other ones that are way more beaten into the dirt than Assassin's Creed. So
it's the worst, and without being racially insensitive, Viking imagery is the most what's the right word? It's just the most overexploited garbage aesthetic, and I'm so sick of it. I'm just Skyrim makes me want to slit my wrists. The only thing that made Thor Ragnarok worth watching is the fact that it went retro 80s synth pop. Vikings can go fuck themselves. I'm so sick of Vikings.
Take that, Vikings.
Vikings.
You 1,000-year extinct way of life.
Fuck them. Fuck Vikings and the ships they rode in on.
Oh, okay, I'll pay that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
IGN 7 out of 10.
Yeah, too much water.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna look up a random culture, and it will be better than Vikings.
I think as far as the setting that they pick, though, like with a lot of the really popular ones at the moment, they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. Because the other one that gets talked about a lot that people kind of want to see is like a Shogun type setting. But we've got, all of these other games that have been recent too in that space, like that feudal Japan kind of space, which they'd be accused of, they're just trying to cash in on that as well. And in this case, they've got, they're just making a fucking Assassin's Creed God of War. It's not obviously what they're doing, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I'm looking forward to it. I think that Assassin's Creed seems to have been on the uptick a bit in terms of the quality of the games over, since Origins and was it Odyssey, the last one?
Yep.
Odyssey was the last, yeah.
Yeah.
I just picked a random country, and it came up with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So that should be the next theme of the next Assassin's
Like
Creed.
a tribal style Assassin's Creed.
Sure. Whatever.
Just world map?
Congoans like.
Over the Ubisoft office, they just have a world map and then just 3 dots. And the place that it lands on is like, okay, yeah, that's in the middle of the ocean. So,
Yep.
hang on, we've already done Atlantis. They did that as part of Odyssey, so never mind.
Yeah.
Try again.
Assassin's Creed Congo is the next one.
Assassin's Creed Congo.
I have one thing I want to say about Valhalla, which is I think that there'll be a cool narrative tie-in to some of the other games in the franchises because Leif Erikson's the Viking, he voyaged to the Americas and encountered the Native Americans. And the original protagonist, Desmond, was part Native American and had like a strong tie into that Native American culture. So I think there's going to be a cool thing where you either play as or there's like a segment with Leif Erikson being like maybe the assassins go to the Americas like way before other Europeans do and like integrate their culture into the Native Americans. I think there's potential to be really cool there.
Yeah. Apparently,
yeah,
it's going to be the first Assassin's Creed game in a while that actually has a modern day setting as part of the game.
I love that.
Yeah.
People always shit on the modern day setting and say like, just make it like get rid of it, just make it a historical game. But I always love that weird stuff.
Yeah, same. I thought it was really cool. Like it kind of played into the whole conspiracy theory thing about it.
Yeah, and they haven't built on that a bit for a while, as you say. So yeah, I don't know.
They fucked up with
The other thing I mentioned is that this game is going to be shorter than the last one. Like it's not going to be as bloated.
I'm happy with that. Odyssey was too big. Like the world map was literally too big, and it just went on too long.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, Assassin's Creed was not all that got shown during that prezzo. We had some other interesting games. There was one that caught my eye just for its art style alone, which has been shown before, but not in as much detail, which was Scorn. So this looks like a psychological sort of horror, sort of H.R. Geiger kind of sci-fi-esque sort of thing. It was super bizarre trailer. Like the art style is just incredible.
I went and looked it up because I was super curious, and it is actually on Steam. And there's some other trailers on there, and it looks disgusting. But I couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a game in there that immediately made me think of Christian, which was was it Red something? God damn it! I'm going to ask him for the name in a second because he'll know what I'm talking about. Scarlet Nexus, that's it. So Scarlet Nexus, which looked very much like a Devil May Cry meets sort of cartoon anime, sort of very colourful, sort of vibrant lights. What's that police game that came out a year or so ago from Platinum that Christian played? I'd ask him if he was here.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about.
With the robots.
Yeah. That's the one. Christian, police game from Platinum that you played last year.
Astral Chain.
Astral Chain, that's the one. Yeah. So Scarlet Nexus looks very Astral Chain-esque in its appearance. So, but the other trailer that really caught my eye was the trailer for the new Yakuza. So Yakuza Like a Dragon. This is one that's going to be like the JRPG sort of turn-based style combat. That's really just sort of going crazy with the theme. So yeah, Adrian.
Is that a white Tim Tam you're eating, Christian? fuck, I really want to white Tim Tam now.
So, more Yakuza, yes, please. I'm super ready for more Yakuza. That sounds lots of fun. But a notable thing about a lot of these game announcements, and Yakuza being one that I immediately honed in on because this hasn't happened before, is they're planning simultaneous multi-platform releases. So, Yakuza Like a Dragon is actually going to be out on PC day and date with the consoles as well, which I'm just like, that's really cool. And I think that this is kind of what the Microsoft world looks like now. All right, Matt, what do you got tonight, newsworthy?
Yeah, so in news that nobody wanted to hear, Civ 6 is getting an annual season pass, which nobody wanted that. So the first season is going to give 2 new leaders. One of them we've seen before, which is leader of the Mayans, and Grand Colombia, which is a new one. Montezuma, I'm pretty sure, yeah. There's a new game mode, which is the Apocalypse game mode. There's new city-states, new resources, and new natural wonders. You can only get access to them via the season pass, the annual pass. I think that's fucking dumb. Yeah, I ditto that gesture you just made, Christian.
Yep.
Like
Game of civilization right there.
Yeah. I think that... So I've talked about Stellaris before. I like how Stellaris does it, and this ties into the whole expansion thing, right?
You like Stellaris?
Does... Yeah, I like Stellaris. Who fucking knew?
I've never heard of it.
You never heard of it. I should clearly talk about it more. Stellaris does big expansions, and then there's free content patches that come out for people. And those free content patches will give you stuff like new resources and new wonders. And like, so everything that's part of the season pass for Civ 6 is stuff that you would just kind of get by default with Stellaris. Outside of the leaders, right? Like, because obviously there's no comparison there with Stellaris. Leaders are a big thing for Civilization. But yeah, I just find it really kind of bad value. Like the first season of content is 2 new leaders and like some a game mode. They released another game mode just recently for free, so I don't understand what the value is in the new game mode. Yeah, I know. I'm not a fan of it.
So looking at the breakdown now, it looks like the 2 new civilizations and leaders and game mode are only the first month. So there's a lot more for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the first, are they doing monthly content? Like, is that basically going to mean like new leaders every single month?
That seems to be the way it looks. Like they've actually got a breakdown up on their site, and it looks like 1 or 2 new civilizations every month.
But in that case, are they going to do the whole thing where? So right now, if you go and play Civ, and you want to play with friends, but you want to play your DLC character, if they don't own it, you can't play together.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how they handle that at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So if they do that with the season pass, you basically need everybody to buy the season pass to be able to play together.
Yeah. I hope they do it more like Armello.
Really dumb.
Because Armello had the expansion sort of clans, and then you could select them if you owned the clan, but if you didn't own the clan, you could still play against them. I thought that was cool. Yeah.
If you own the clans and you host the game, everybody playing can select those clans.
That was how that worked. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The word clan has just lost all meaning now.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of this. Like, I think that Civ expansions were far cooler because they added a whole bunch of extra interesting stuff, right? Like, you know, we've added religion to the game, and now there's religious victory and everything. Stuff like that I think is really cool. I think the most recent expansion they did where like there's pollution and you could cause the planet's sea levels to rise and everything like that. I think that's fucking awesome. That's a really, really cool mechanic.
Summon Captain Pollution?
Yes, summon Captain Pollution. And there's a strategy in that as well, right? It's like, okay, so my enemies are all based on the coast. Time to just pollute like fucking crazy to just completely flood them. Like, just be that asshole. But I think that the DLC is going to make Civ miss out on that stuff if that's all that you're getting for the year, right? So,
interesting. Yeah. I disagree, but I'll tell you why when we get to our main topic. So,
unless anybody's got anything to add, I think that's a good point to actually segue into the main topic.
That's it. Take it away, Matt.
So, our main topic was a suggestion by me. Like, Having played through Black Mesa recently, it got me to thinking about like when I was younger, going out to the store, and I owned Half-Life, and then picking up Blue Shift or picking up Opposing Force, and having these really cool boxes that I think with the Half-Life expansions, they were technically standalone games. You didn't need to own the base game, but they were still treated as expansions. And I quite like that. I remember like, God, what was it? There was this old school top-down strategies quite often did the expansion thing where you got new factions to play as and everything. But it typically changed a lot about how the game played, or it gave you a new perspective to kind of play from. Like StarCraft kind of did that thing. I
think Red Alert Aftermath is the first expansion I can remember playing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it was Red Alert that I was thinking of. But what for all of you, like when you think of expansions, what is the first game that kind of comes to mind? What do you think about when you think of a game expansion?
For me, I think the first one I remember was probably Lord of Destruction for Diablo 2.
Yep. Yeah, that's on my list, for sure.
Like, I'm sure there must have been other expansions that I played before that one, but that one stands out in my mind because I remember our family went to Singapore for a holiday, and I remember buying it in Singapore and being super excited and having like the physical expansion like in my hand, and like just being super excited about getting home from our holiday to play it, and like just thinking about it the whole time and then getting to do it. And like I said, there must have been other expansions, or the only two that come to mind are that, and like maybe Blue Shift or Opposing Force from the Half-Life series. Yep. If you consider those expansions, I don't know if they're more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think that they were actually treated as standalone games, but you're right. They had expansion on the label. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So those are the only ones that I really remember. Maybe. Oh no! Actually, you know what comes to mind is it Commander Keen had like, remember there were like extra chapters that you could buy?
Yep.
That comes to mind. I think Commander Keen, was it Commander Keen or was it, I know Duke Nukem did as well, Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah, that definitely did. Yeah.
Like extra chapters that you would buy like after having the main game. Yeah. So there you go. There's some off the top of my head.
Yeah. What about you, Luke?
For me, like, Red Alert Aftermath is the first one I remember. And then also, like, I'm a big fan of the Heroes of Might and Magic games. Particularly, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 had one called Armageddon's Blade that, like, introduced a new faction and a lot of new artifacts and that sort of stuff. And then Baldur's Gate 2, Throne of Baal, was a huge one. And, yeah, like, for me, they're all obviously PC games because it was before there was any capability of doing that on console. So it's all, like, old PC games that I think of.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same in terms of memory of first expansions, and going down this Command & Conquer theme too. The first one that I ever owned, I think, was actually the Covert Operations, which was the expansion to original CNC, which is very much the same sort of thing as what Aftermath did. But I think Aftermath was a bit weirder in that as an expansion for Red Alert, it added some super bizarre stuff like giant ants and shit like that. So
ants did it?
Yeah. Red Alert Aftermath added giant fucking ants, like alien ants that were invading the planet. It was weird. Yeah.
Are you sure you weren't just hallucinating?
No, I'm positive. I've actually got it here. I'll pull it out later and show you. So, yeah. It was super cool.
Yeah, so
actually, keep talking. I'll fucking get it. Go.
No, yeah, go. Yeah, so I was going to say, like,
the main thing I remember the Chrono Tank, but anyway.
The only other game that I can think of that I remember, probably was my first game that I grabbed a whole bunch of expansions for, was probably Neverwinter Nights, and all of the expansions that came out for that. But the thing, when I was kind of doing this whole thought exercise about, like, okay, well, what expansions have I played recently? Outside of, like, a tiny number of modern games, most of them are old. Like, they're older titles, PC titles, like you pointed out, Christian.
Yeah.
What happened? Like I'm kind of curious as to what you all think happened, and, like, is there any difference between, like, if I say expansion and then I say DLC, is there a clear difference between those things? Like, is there a difference between expansion and DLC?
In my mind, because I can't be fucked thinking about it too much, DLC is just expansion. It's the same thing for me now. Yeah. Like, when I try to think about, what is an expansion, it's just more content added into the game that wasn't there when you first bought it.
Yeah.
For me, all DLC is expansion.
Yeah, but not all expansion is DLC. It doesn't work the other way around.
Well, literally, it's not, because some of it's not downloadable. Some of it's on a disc.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, these days, less and less. But yeah. Yeah. So original Red Alert.
Yep.
And the expansion I was thinking of wasn't Counter-Strike. It was actually no, it is Counter-Strike. No, so that is Counter-Strike. Yeah.
That's the one with the ant.
I was reading
Aftermath doesn't have those stupid ant missions. But I want to say, so I actually think there is a distinction between expansions and DLC, and you can say like literally every DLC expands on the game, but as far as the actual like usage of the term, I think people refer to an expansion as like a substantial, like a much larger thing than like a single piece of DLC. And to my mind too, expansions generally add on to the core game generally, and obviously there's exceptions and there's blurred lines between DLC and expansions, but like an example, Last of Us Left Behind, where it's like a side story that it's a downloadable addition to the game, but it doesn't add on to your core experience of playing The Last of Us. It's like an extra side mission. And I don't think of that as an expansion. I think of that as like a download as DLC. Whereas the expansions we're talking about, I usually think of them as integrating into the main game.
Yeah. See, like I can kind of point to a key point in time where I think that DLCs and expansions became very clearly different in my mind. And that was when it was Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and we got Horse Armor. The Horse Armor DLC made, so here's DLC. It's something that changes the way the game looks, or it adds something small to the game, like an item or something like that. So that would be your downloadable content. But then an expansion on Oblivion with an entirely new story and add some more content and such. Like that was kind of the key difference between those things.
I only think it was a difference in terms of how it was monetized, because we've actually seen expanded content added to games for a long time. And using Red Alert as a really early example, you could download additional multiplayer maps for that game through official and non-official sources that were free. It's just the fact that, as of Horse Armor Gate, it started to become... it was really funny because I think it was at a PAX a few years back. Bethesda guys, I think it was Pete Hines himself, actually got up and spoke about like the history of the Horse Armor Gate sort of issue and what their thinking was around the time. But it was literally because they tried to monetize it the way they did. That's why it became such a touchstone. So yeah.
And of course, it's now completely normalized. Like Horse Armor now is nothing. Like at the time, it was a big deal.
Horse Armor now is a pre-order bonus. So
I think it's a good point though, Matt, of the Elder Scrolls games kind of encapsulating that blurring the lines of having clear DLC and then big expansions like Shivering Isles or the whatever the ones for Skyrim were called. And I also think of like a game which blurs the lines, or a studio, is BioWare too, with like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, where they started adding pretty substantial story content as DLC packages, but they weren't like they weren't as meaty as you would previously have expected from like an on-disc expansion. Like that to me also was kind of like, are they downloadable expansions or are they just like extra missions? And it kind of blurs the line.
Yeah. Like I think Mass Effect actually a good example of that, because like Mass Effect 3 and the whole party expansion.
The Citadel.
I say expansion.
Citadel, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, Citadel's called DLC, but I would actually call it more of an expansion on the content, because the fact that it's expanding on the story, it's adding new missions and such, it's adding more stuff. Whereas they did have DLC in the form of like, hey, get your Dragon Age armor, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like that little cosmetic thing. But none of this kind of like, I think there was another key point in the industry with expansions where things started shifting, and that was when we started getting episodic content as well, where I think I'm going to kind of point the blame at Valve more than anybody else for kind of fucking that up. with Half-Life. Like episode content kind of became this bad thing where it's like, oh, we are going to get more episodes of story, but then they can just go away, right? And it's like you're not getting the full narrative anymore. Like Half-Life 2, its ending would have been fine if it didn't actually have those episodes that followed.
Additions,
it, right? Yeah, they were additions on top of it that left the story hanging more because they wanted you to buy the next episode that they would never make, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Half-Life 2 ended in such a way where it's like, okay, well, we're going to end it on the same note we kind of ended Half-Life 1, right? This is spoilers for you, Luke. I'm sorry. But yeah, like, so, and then you got Telltale games, right? Like, Telltale obviously did the whole episodic thing, but it was like episodes were a section of the full game.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think that's expansion at all because the expectation is set from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's part of a whole rather than adding something onto a whole.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm kind of curious because like, so then it sounds like we're kind of split down the middle here. Half of us think that expansions are DLC, and half of us feel like expansions are a separate thing. Is that
what did I say? I forgot what I said, and I think
you said there's no difference.
No,
there's no difference.
I think I said the opposite of what I meant.
Right.
I think I understand what Luke was saying. Well, what I was trying to say was that all expansions are DLC.
Yes.
But not all DLC are expansions.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
but
gotcha.
I said it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
I actually think I've just come up with like a kind of clearish way of distinguishing them in my mind, which is expansions used to have to be on a disc or a disc because there was no downloadable stuff. So, and people would buy it. They'd see there's enough content on that disc that I'm going to pay for that. Now, so with even with the downloadable content, is there enough in that downloadable package that somebody would buy it on a disc if it was on a shelf? And if there's not enough to fill like a disc's worth of content, then I don't think it's an expansion.
It's really funny you say that because when I was kind of thinking about this, I'm like, whenever I think of expansions now, I think of that physical thing that I go out to purchase. So like, you're right. Like DLC can be an expansion, but not all. Oh no! All expansions are God, I don't know. It's fucking confusing.
Yeah. I'll talk about my difference
Always
then, because I actually disagree with all of you. I don't think that we're on the same page at all. Like, to me, the only thing that is not an expansion is a patch to a game, like an update that improves the core functionality. Which is, more of fixing errors and that sort of shit. I don't consider that an expansion, but literally everything else that you've just talked about, whether it's adding a single cosmetic to the game, to enough content that could actually be packaged as a separate entity in a retail sense, I think that that's all expansions. I look at it in a very literal sense. And I just think that not all expansions are created equal, just in the way that not all early access games are equal. Like some of them are just skeletal kind of, very pale representations of what they're actually going to be eventually, whereas some of them are almost finished products. You can't paint expansions with the same brush because some of them are huge, like the expansions for The Witcher 3, classic example. They're in some cases almost as big as the game itself, whereas you have other expansions that might be like Doom Eternal's going to have some expansion content come out soon. I don't expect that to be more than a small bit of story added on with maybe a couple of additional sort of locations. You can't say that that's like a significant size compared to the game itself. So compared to like Witcher, that's miles apart. So I don't think that we do ourselves a service by sort of getting too precious with our definition of expansion because it is a very literal label. Like, let's be real.
So So
you go, Adrian.
Look, I was just going to say, like, this is where like my linguistic study might help a bit, but like, I think there's a difference between semantics and pragmatics where like in this case people might say you argue for the case of like, oh, that's just semantics. What it actually is pragmatics where like what you say does matter, like what you call something does matter. And I think in this case, for the sake of the conversation, we should just define what an expansion. Well, we are defining what expansion is, but it's in the name. And I essentially agree with Christian in that you're looking at something that expands the game. So if you're looking at like a small amount of content, like a new weapon, or in a fighting game, a new character,
like horse armor,
like horse armor, then I don't think that's an expansion because words matter and labels matter. So
Exactly.
In order to call something an expansion, there is a defined, agreed upon quantity. We don't know what that is, and we can't define it between the four of us, but it does exist.
I've actually got an interesting example that might actually help your argument as opposed to mine, so I'm just going to throw it out there. So the way that The Sims has split up their content, I think, is actually a really good example, because they've got a whole bunch of additions to The Sims. What's the current one? Sims 4? Yeah, Sims 4?
4, yeah.
Yeah, and they actually separate what their things are into 3 different categories, and I'm probably going to get them slightly wrong, but there's expansion packs, which add like core new functionality to the game.
Mechanics and such.
Yeah, mechanics. Like the one that they just announced recently was a new eco-friendly expansion, which is going to enable you to do a whole bunch of things around recycling and sort of green smart stuff, and that's like a significant amount of new mechanics to the game. Then they've got stuff packs, which I think are just like cosmetic stuff that they've added to the game. So things you can give to your Sims.
New furnitures.
Yeah, things like that. And there's a third type as well, which is more of like a gear pack of some sort. I think it might be furniture.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing. It's slightly more cosmetic stuff, but it's kind of split out a bit. So using their model, that kind of supports what you guys are saying in terms of only one of those 3 is an expansion.
That's a nice illustration where EA, they've clearly they've been influenced by the broader use of the term expansion, and then they've created their own little sub definitions within their game of what they're calling an expansion. Yeah. But like to Adrian's point too, like if you just ask somebody who's played the games, hey, how many expansions does Oblivion have? They'll probably say, I think 1, Shivering Isles, but they won't say horse armor, wizard's hat, sort of elf man. Like they're not going to say that. They're going to say it's got 1 expansion, and I think that's because how it's used. And like same with The Witcher 3, your example, Luke. People will say, "Oh, Heart of Stone, Blood and Wine," but they're not going to say Geralt's blue armor, Geralt's zigzag sword, Geralt's
2 or 3 for The Witcher. I think
Emperor Horse. I think it's 2 or 3. But my point is they're not going to include all the other stuff.
Yeah. I think that like. The word has kind of changed over time, because downloadable content would have meant before, like, okay, on my tiny slow speed ADSL connection, that 5 megabyte file is downloadable content, but this 3 gigabyte expansion is absolutely fucking not, right? Like I would need to go out to the store to buy those discs so I can install them on my PC. But now that line has kind of blurred because everything's downloadable, right?
I think there's an easy way to sort of categorize it, and that's the fact that like expansions first started coming out back when games were way more narratively driven, like back when when an expansion literally was narrative, like that like I can't think of many games that had additional content that wasn't related to the story when it first started happening. So maybe that's what it still is, because that's what it initially was. And like kind of what Lucas said, anything else is some other type of additional content.
Well, the only reason why we're having this discussion at all is because technology has made the smaller packages possible. Because, back in, when we were growing up and expansions were substantial pieces of content that had to be sold as separate entities, it's because the distribution method was such that they had to wait until they had enough content to actually put it on a disc to distribute that way. So... yeah.
Look, how did you feel when they added the expansion of indoor plumbing to your life?
I was going to say the AD
that a thing?
expansion.
Can I get that? Because
you don't have to use the bucket anymore, Luke.
I'm sick of pulling shit out of my latrine with my hands. If there's a better alternative, please let me know.
No, there isn't, Luke. That's the sad thing. There isn't.
Fuck.
You're just going to have to keep doing it.
God damn it. All right.
I think like... because I think what this kind of burns down to for me is like there has kind of been a blurring of what you're getting out of stuff, right? So like the reason I kind of dislike season passes, like from a developer perspective, I like season passes because of the fact that it means that you get money coming in constantly to pay developers while they make season content, right? But at the same time, like if you're buying that, what the hell are you getting, right? Like an expansion is a clear thing. You're actually getting a clear amount of stuff straight from the get-go. Like it's all on a disc. It's right there. I can install it. I can start playing it now. And so that kind of seasonal content really blurs the lines, right? Like is it going to be an expansion's worth of content, or is it going to be a whole crap ton of DLC, right?
And I'm on record with like my gaming habits where generally I don't go back for DLC. Like I'm usually a main campaign and done. But if there's enough to constitute like a big expansion, that might draw me back. But I don't like going back for the drip feed. It's not my jam.
Yeah, I think a big part of it now as well is that we're spoilt with games, like compared to when we were kids, where like you'd have the same 4 games for years. So getting an expansion was a cool way to like get something new. Well, as now, I mean, we're playing new games every week. So who gives a shit about an expansion?
Playing a new game right now.
Oh my god! Who gives a shit? Really? Yeah.
Because like we talk about Chimera Squad, could be expansion content, but I'm kind of glad that it's standalone.
Yeah,
like
it allows them
I'm
to
glad that it's
experiment
its
more.
own thing.
Yeah,
exactly. Like it's they're not going to be limited by the same systems and everything like that. And I feel like the same thing kind of happened. Like originally, ODST like was called Halo 3 ODST because it was going to be an expansion on Halo 3.
Yeah.
And then it became its whole own thing, and I think that it was better for it. Like they could take more risks and make it its own standalone thing.
I, for one, am really glad that expansions of a substantive nature before next main entries and some of these weird half steps like what you've just described actually exist, because there are some franchises that the wait between entries is just excruciating when you're a huge fan of that franchise. And
Destiny too.
Yeah. I mean, no, Destiny's a totally different situation because of the online nature of the game. And I think I'll get onto that in a sec.
Talking online games, that's a whole...
Yeah. Also, all of Destiny 2 is excruciating, so...
Anyway, look, my thing with season passes, I actually fucking love season passes. I think that season passes are one of the smartest things that have come out of the last few years of content distribution in video games. However, I do have a caveat with that, and that's that I love them with online games, multiplayer online games. With single player games, fuck no, get it out. With single player games, I think you're much better off actually having that chunkified sort of approach to expansions and have like a substantial amount of stuff that you can push out before you do it. Because the motivation for the developer or the publisher, I think, is very different when it comes to single player versus the multiplayer games. Multiplayer online games, having a drip feed of content and having season passes to keep people in the ecosystem makes a huge amount of sense, because one of the big appeals to those games is you actually want to be able to find people to play with at any given moment of the day. And keeping people in that sort of walled garden, if you like, constantly, keeping them engaged constantly, whatever way they have to do that, to achieve that, I think good on them. That's way, way better than having like big low points. Like we've seen it in World of Warcraft. That's a classic example. You have these big low points where everybody gets bored of the content because there's nothing new, and everyone deserts the game for however long, and it's a lot harder to find people to party up with and play against in head-to-head stuff. And then you have these big spikes of players sort of coming back into the game around these big expansion launches, which I think that, from a revenue perspective for those companies, it's probably not ideal. From a server load perspective, not ideal. If you can keep people constantly engaged, that's way, way better. And from a monetary standpoint, like particularly how Fortnite's been so successful with their season pass model, is that you keep people constantly engaged, you've got people constantly spending money as well. So it just makes a shitload more sense. But like Destiny, I think, is a weird amalgamation of the two, because it has expansions and it has the constant sort of drip feed of content through the season pass.
It started with expansions.
True.
It started with them, and like, I think that the most recent expansion absolutely was an expansion. They even called it that thing because it changed a lot about how the game played. But then everything since then has been DLC, right? Like it's been ongoing content and seasonal content. Which isn't to the same scope as an expansion is, because they're not trying to change everything every couple of weeks. And that makes sense, right? Like, I don't want them to change the game's mechanics every couple of months. Yeah. I want them to like they're talking about the next year of Destiny, and they're talking about all of those changes they're going to make. And that's like, fantastic. Don't do that next season. I want them to take the time to get that right as an expansion, essentially.
So they've got this constant drip feed and engagement, and then a spike each year as well. So they're kind of having their cake and eating it too in a lot of ways.
And that's what World of Warcraft does now too. Like, World of Warcraft essentially does that, but they don't have seasonal pass content necessarily. I think you might, because you still pay a subscription, but you're getting like that kind of monthly content drip of narrative and new stuff unlocking, that sort of thing. But yeah, cool. Well, that's why I want to talk about. I was just interested in everyone's opinions on how expansions have developed over time, and I kind of miss them. I think I have a bit of a nostalgia factor in there because when I was sitting there writing about going out and buying old expansion packs, I kind of missed that experience. It's kind of weird.
Well, if Cyberpunk is good, I think we're in for a couple of meaty expansions for that game from what we've been reading. So they're going to do the Witcher thing by the look of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's good. I hope there's expansions.
I didn't mention the Total War games as well. The Total War games have had some great expansions that I have a lot of nostalgia for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Matt, just to sort of come 360 back around to the original thing that you were complaining about with Civ during our news segment. So you're against the idea of them doing a season pass for Civ. Why?
Yes. I'm against it because it's not an online game, and depending on it's online if you play it with friends already, right? Like if you play Civ multiplayer with friends, then absolutely go right ahead. But that assumes that they don't do the access to leaders in the same way they have done in past, where you had to buy them. Like if you basically have the season pass and everybody gets to play with you no matter what, great. Season pass is fine. But at the same time, it feels like too little too late. Like Civ has been pretty quiet for a while now, and it's been doing the whole expansion thing. Maybe it's got more players than I kind of give it credit for, but my understanding of Civ 6 is most players are like, I'm going to play Civ 5 because it's better. So
I don't like season passes because they influence the pace that the game wants me to play it at. Whereas I like to have my product and then I can choose when and I want to consume it. Whereas with the season pass, they're saying, we're going to stagger these releases, and if you want to experience it all, and unless you wait until it's all done, you have to play over this length of time. And then even if you wait until it's all done and play it, often, as Matt has said, I think you said, it's not structured in a way that's one cohesive expansion. With Civ 6, they're not introducing big new core systems into the game. They're adding bits and bobs, and I don't think it's going to add up to the equivalent of a full expansion if you just wait for it.
I would have more of a problem with Civ in this respect if they hadn't already had 2 significant expansions.
So, I haven't even played Civ 6, so
yeah. I would agree, but then there's weirdness in there, like new resources coming out of a expansion, a season pass. Like, how the hell is that going to work? Like, how do if new resources are attached to the season pass, then how does that work with players that don't have the season pass? Like, that's the sort of thing that kind of worries me. Whereas in Destiny, like if they add a new resource and you have to have the expansion to play it, then you have that thing, and they don't add new resources unless every single player gets access to it, right? So that's the sort of thing that does worry me with Civ 6, is the fact that they're basically just going to say, if you want to play with friends with season pass content, then you all have to have that.
It's the easiest solution. Just don't have any friends.
Boom.
That's why I don't play Civ 6 online.
We should totally play Civ 6 online, Matt.
That'd actually be kind of good. I do like Civ. So.
Yeah, it's not really a streamable game though, I don't think, unless people want to be super chill watching a long game. But
you need to have a way. 24-hour stream.
It's super hard because you can only show one perspective. But anyway, that's a whole other topic.
That's what I was going to say. If you could swap perspectives, then that'd be great.
Yeah. Christian, you said you're notorious for not going back and sort of diving back into games after DLC gets released. Is there maybe one notable exception you can think of to that, where you've actually gone back and played an expansion and loved it, that's come out after the fact?
Putting that on me now to think of, not for a game that's not online.
Did you play Left Behind?
Yes, I did. I did. So that's one. I did go back for that and enjoy it. But there's not a lot. But that was one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might actually play Left Behind.
I never played. Was it the standalone one for 4? I never played that. Lost Legacy, was it?
Oh yeah, but that was a separate game. That wasn't an expansion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a.
That was the Chimera Squad of the Uncharted series.
It was the Chimera Squad.
Yeah. But honestly, you should, because it's fucking good. Really good. Yeah.
But to me, it was too close to Uncharted 4, where it was like, I don't want more Uncharted right now.
Timing wise, I could totally understand. Yeah. But I mean, if you've had enough of a break now, you should totally play that game because it's really good.
Yeah. Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Cool. Well, not to expand too much into the rest of the hour, but that's an episode. So thank you very much, gentlemen. That was good. I think a topic we could probably talk about at length because it's quite expansive. I'm done. Fuck it. Yeah, no, that's enough. Good. All right, so I think next week, Matt, we're going to stream some more Man of Medan. We're going to try and finish that game off, I think.
I think we can finish it, yeah.
The plan? Yep, cool. So catch us here next Wednesday on twitch.tv/partyloaded for hopefully the second and concluding half of our Man of Medan playthrough. So I think we're getting to the real meaty horror bits now. So a lot less lead up of, teenage...
Real man meat?
The real man meat. The real man of Medan meat. The Medan meat, yeah.
Medan meat.
Medan meat, yeah. So that'll be good. Yeah, and I think we've lost a couple of characters now too, so we've refined our palette a little bit. So
one of those characters I liked.
Sure, one of them was fucking trash, so...
One of them was trash, it's true.
Yeah.
I was quite happy to throw him off the rooftop.
That's it, absolutely. So that's coming up. But otherwise, regular podcast again in 2 weeks. We'll catch you for that one. Keep in touch with us in all the usual spots. So mail at partyloaded.com, at partyloaded show on Twitter. Just search for partyloaded on Facebook. And as always, everything linked through our main hub at channelendgame.com. Thanks, gentlemen, for the show tonight. Thanks for the discussion. Good games, good times.
Thank you, Luke, as always.
Yeah, another 2 weeks of self-isolating games. Let's get to it. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you then. Good night.
Good night.
See ya.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.